And to be able to do that, and for us to create a development with order, it was decided that there should be a master plan, to guide every development in Abuja. So when it was pronounced that now we have Abuja as our headquarters, the International Planning Associates were commissioned to prepare the master plan for Abuja, right from the regional plan, which was done by Doxiadis and partners, and then to the city plan, which was done by International Planning Associates, and the various district plans and various levels of plan until we got to the design details at each of almost every plot. That was what was done, so that we are sure that what we intended to do or the mistakes that we had in Lagos would not be repeated in Abuja. And if somebody is going to do that, there must be somebody who will be ready to check, to make sure that the right development is taking place at the right time, by the right person, at the right location. And these are the 4 issues that guide this issue of control. Now, if that one is not done, then we would have lost it. And then we'll get back to where we are coming from. The era of disorder, the era of inadequacies, the era of interruption in terms of facilities and infrastructure. So, that is why you have development control. So you ask me, what is the role of development control? So basically, it is to guide, to ensure that developments are allowed to take place at the right time, by the right person for the right purpose. That is their major job. And what do they do? In such a case, they look at proposals for development. They look at proposals for development, assess it, whether it is compliant with the established regulations and standards. Now, it is important to know that, we have standards for development, for commercial development, for residential development, for industrial development. We have both locational standards and what you call, we have locational standards, to tell us how, where this place should be located. So, these are the things that they check. So if you are interested in developing a place, what do you want to do in that place? What type of land use? What type of percentage of coverage do you have? What type of height do you want to maintain? These things are already documented in the books. The standards, the regulations have been updated from time to time to meet up with contemporary issues in terms of development. The latest one, which is being used now, is the 2007 Development Control Guidelines. And it gives you details, including how you can get land for development. So, what is the role of development control? They are to assess, development proposals and grant approvals or otherwise, as the case may be. Now, beyond that, they are also expected to enforce the planning regulations. Now, when somebody goes out of course, when you don't have approval to develop, or when you are given approval to develop and you are developing contrary to what was approved, it is their duty to enforce, to make sure that it is corrected. So that is a very, very important part of, of the job of development control. Now, beyond that, for those who are really eager to do the right development, before you start any development, it is good for you to go to development control and find out what are the standards that I am to keep in this place. Now, when you go, development control will willingly advise you. This is the type of development, this is the height you must maintain, this is the number of families, this is the number of parking spaces, and this should be the setbacks, this will be the building line, and so many other details. When they give you this, when you are able to get this advice from development control, by the time you bring in your design, it will be very, very easy for you to pass through. But these are some of the things that people do not know. It is, I mean, the development control is there to play an advisory role to every developer, who is interested, in doing the right development. So,
thank you, Tamfan and Nathaniel, for enlightening us and elaborately telling us what the roles of development control officers are. So, based on what you said, it leads to the incident that happened recently. You said one of their roles is to enforce and also to advise. So, the incident that happened in Sabon Lube recently, where some development control officers were attacked, I want us to, analyze this incident to know if the developers in this case sought out advice, and if legal procedures were taken by the development control officers, if there were notice sent, if there was a deadline sent, if they don't comply to the regulations and to the laws. I want us to analyze the situation from what happened, everything down to the legal procedures.
Yes, there are provisions in the Nigerian Urban and Regional Planning law, that guides people, that tells us how development should take place. The regulations that I've just told you, they are just an abstract from that law. And the law, makes it mandatory, even government projects, that before you go into develop anything, you must have approval from development control. And anything outside that is an illegal development. That is one. Now, maybe taking from what happened recently, I think it is something that people should know, that Development Control Department is not malicious, either as a group of persons or as individuals. The officers are not malicious. They only work with, stipulated regulations. And when they go out in the name of the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, to enforce the law of the Federal Republic of Federal Government of Nigeria. It is important to know that because they are not a department that acts on malice, therefore, whenever they are out, they have all their facts, they have cross-checked all their facts, they have given adequate information. They have given adequate sensitization to whosoever is doing illegal development. The law says that, within 21 days, any erring development must be removed. That is what you have in the law. Therefore, notices would have been served. Now, let me give you another reason why you believe that, notices would have been served, adequate notices would have been served for the developer to comply. Is that by the time officers are going out, and they are going out with law enforcement agents of the government, it's a police, civil defense, soldiers, it should be clear to you that, look, these people are not just on their own. Because development control will not go and hire policemen to just follow them to do things which are inconsistent with the laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And that is to say that when you see police officer going, with this team of people to work, the first thing is that you should respect the Federal Government of Nigeria. Due diligence must have been taken. Assuming, which is not even possible, that due diligence was not taken, but seeing an officer of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in his uniform, granted that that some people may not even know that development control officers who are acting here are officers without uniform. They are law enforcement agents without uniform. All of us cannot be carrying uniform up and down. Some people are expected to carry uniform. Some people are expected to carry arms. The rest of us are expected to wear our own dresses, but we still have the force of the law to control and to make sure that there's, peace and order in the society.
So, okay, just to clarify, in this particular incident, the Sabon Lugbe incident, so you're saying that due diligence was taken, notices were sent to the developer in this incident, and that the developer did not reach out to the development control officers. Therefore, the construction became illegal, and that due diligences were sent, notices were sent. Is that like a fact in this incident?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you. So we have to take a pause here, and you can see that this conversation is a very, very important conversation when it regards to development in the FCT. So when we come back, we're going to continue this important discussion. Stay tuned.
Visit Housing TV Africa on YouTube and click on the subscribe button. Subscribe to Housing TV Africa to stay updated on latest happenings in Nigeria's housing sector. Follow our social media pages, like and share our posts. On Facebook, Housing TV Africa. On Twitter, Housing TV Africa. Instagram, Housing TV Africa. Join the conversation and keep up with latest housing updates.
Welcome back. You're still watching City Pulse on Housing TV Africa. And I still have here with me Town Planner Nathaniel Atibeji. And we've been discussing the assault and molestation of development control officers in the FCT and in Nigeria in general. So we've discussed the role of development control officers, how important their role is in making sure that cities are planned accurately and things don't go without order. And then we are currently analyzing the Sabon Lugbe case that happened recently, where development control officers were attacked while they went to enforce the legal procedures, while they were doing their duty. And we've analyzed some facts, and we've come to the awareness that due diligence were taken by these officers. Tamson and Nathaniel made us know that notices were sent, and legal procedures were taken. Now we want to go to the fact that the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners have strongly condemned this attack, and they've called on the government for immediate action. So I want to ask, what is happening? Is the investigation going on? What are the steps the government is taking? What is the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners proposing the government to do?
Let me say that as per investigation on the side of what happened, well, that is being done by the Federal Capital Territory Administration, which is outside. It's not for the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners to do that. Okay. But
I was just asking if they are following it up, since it's a matter that affects.
Yes, as God will have it, the national president has addressed the press and has, informed the nation that, look, this thing should be taken seriously, or else we're not going to have the right development in this country. Because if the people who are expected to, maintain peace and order, if they are the ones that are now abusing peace and order in the country, just like Chairman Mao said that, look, if the citadel of justice is corrupt, then what will happen to body politics? It will completely, collapse. Therefore, law enforcement agents, they also need to know. Perhaps, maybe what should happen is that people should know that, we have laws in this country. There should be a lot of sensitization, particularly for people who are in uniform, to know that we have one law in this country. Just as they are doing their own duties, the other people who are not carrying uniforms are also expected to do their own duties. Just as, you have, the way of doing your own, we also have the way of doing our own. And they should also know that there are provisions in the law that says that you shouldn't, for any reason, interrupt, intimidate, molest, any officer of government while he is carrying out his official duty. Let me talk about the, Section 155, of the Criminal Code Act, particularly in southern Nigeria. And that section says that it is an offense to assault, to resist, to obstruct a public officer while he is executing his duty. So it doesn't matter whoever you are. If you are touched by the enforcement of a public officer, it means that there was an error. You have no reason to assault him. You have no reason to resist him. You have no reason to obstruct him. Now, it is also important to know that it doesn't just go without a penalty. That you can have up to 3 years imprisonment. It doesn't matter who you are. As long as you assault or you resist or you obstruct a public officer from carrying out his duty while he is doing his duty legally and diligently. That is for Southern Nigeria. But look at the penal code of the Northern Nigeria, section 147. It says the same thing, that it is an offense to obstruct, to intimidate, to molest any public officer. And it gives you up to between 1 to 3 years imprisonment. It doesn't matter whoever you are. Now, apart from that, let us look at similar laws. If you look at the Police Act of 2020, section 98, it tells you about, the penalty for obstructing an officer. On this site that people were molested, there were officers in uniform and there were officers without uniform. And so whichever way, an offense has been committed by anybody who assaulted. Either you were directed by an officer who is senior to you or by an interested party. It is an offense. And so people should know that we are guided. There are so many other laws, so many other parts, in the EFCC Act, in section 38, subsection 2, it says that you have up to 5 years imprisonment or you pay a fine of not less than 250,000 or both imprisonment and the fine. Now we have also something like that in the ICPC Act, section 25. What I'm saying is that these are public officers. And whenever they are carrying out their duties and anybody obstructs them, it is an offense against the federal government of Nigeria. And that person must face the penalties of it.
So that's what okay. Now, you said that the FCTA is investigating this particular incident that happened in Sabon Lube. So what is happening? How do we ensure that perpetrators don't go off free, that they paid for their actions, that law is being taken, justice is being taken place in this particular incident?
Well, it is now entirely in the hands of the Federal Capital Territory Administration if they want to be sure that Abuja runs on the right course. Because if people exercise impunity and it is tolerated, the worst will still come and happen. And so it is now in the hands of the Federal Capital Territory Administration, and it is important to know that the administrator of the Federal Capital Territory is the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. He has only delegated that power to the Minister of FCT. So anybody who fights a development control officer is fighting the President and the Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And whatsoever should be done to make sure that you do not insult the apex authority of this country must have to be done. If not, worse things will still happen.
Thank you. So finally, I want to ask about the officers that were affected by this assault. While we are seeking justice, I want to ask, how are they doing, their family? What are the measures that have been put in place to support them after going through this experience?
Well, again, that is entirely what the FCT and perhaps the culprit would have been working on. But, for the information at our disposal, you can imagine that women, married women, who were not carrying arms, were slapped bitterly, beaten mercilessly. And then the leader of the team was beaten with wounds, injuries, and had to be admitted in the hospital? No. This is not a lawless country. Something must be done. Now, so I don't know what welfare has been given to these families, but for God's sake, whatever welfare you give to somebody after you have brutalized him for doing his official job is not acceptable.
Exactly. So now we have to look at the preventive measures. While we are waiting for the Federal Capital Territory Administration to handle this issue, what can development control officers do to prevent this from happening, to safeguard themselves from this incident? For things like this to happen again, what can they do? Preventive measures.
Okay. It is not a matter of development control preventing themselves from this thing happening. It's a matter of people knowing the provisions of the law and working, by the provisions of the law. So one, it is important that the legal frameworks should be strengthened. Many times, when things happen, we treat them with levity. I think until some people face very serious, strong court proceedings, and they are publicly, sentenced for such an act. If not, it will not be a lesson to people. So I think it is important that strict penalties must be made for such assaults. Maybe when you are saying that you give somebody 3 years or 250,000, or both, fine. Thank God that they say both can apply. But to give an alternative of saying somebody should pay 250,000 for insulting the apex authority of this nation, I think that is, we're not serious. Until some people receive some very serious prosecution, until they see very, very serious penalties for such assaults, they may not know the seriousness of this. Then it is important, one of the things that we do preach, it's gaining ground now, is this issue of inclusiveness, engaging people in dialogues. Time it was when we used to have what we call town hall meetings. There should be a lot of sensitization. One, either from the side of development control, you have public relations unit. The FCTA has public relations unit. I think there should be dedicated programs to make people understand how Abuja works, how people should go about the development in Abuja. And the Federal Ministry of Information should take it upon themselves, because Abuja is the pride of Nigeria, and to some extent the pride of Africa. And so if we do not cause people to understand what they should do, and they operate in ignorance, although they say ignorance is not an excuse at law, but then we should help people to understand these things. Then perhaps also on the side of development control also, or FCTA, there's need for very, very serious, rigorous capacity building to update people with, the current best practices, in carrying out some of these duties. And in doing so, let us collaborate. You see, there is nothing that collaboration cannot make to succeed. The military should also know that they are there serving the public, just as the public is also there to take care of their own interests. Come to think of it, all of us are deriving our means of livelihood, salaries, allowances, and all this from the same government. So why should we be fighting one another? So I think it is something that is important. If the military do not actually mix with the civilians, I think it is important that such information should be passed to them, so that they know that we are collaborators. We are not working at cross purposes. We are working to achieve the same goal. Therefore, they should understand, the way we work. And if there is something that they cannot understand, it is not by force that you get the answer to the question. It actually becomes worse when you use force. Things can be better when you dialogue.
Thank you so much, Town Planner Nathaniel. It has been a very enlightening conversation and bringing this pressing and very important issue into the light. It has been addressed, and we have to say that that brings us to the end of today's episode of City Pulse. We've discussed the vital role of development control officers, the disturbing attack in Sabulube, and the urgent need for better protection and legal enforcement. A key word here from this conversation is dialogue. We need to come together and have discussions about these issues. Sensitization is another important word, and collaboration. They say a house divided cannot stand. So all the forces and officials working for the government should come together and work despite their different roles and realize that they're all working for the same goals, for the progress of the nation. Thank you so much for joining us. And I want to thank my guest for today, Town Planner Nathaniel Atebije, FNITP, for enlightening us and bringing this conversation into light. I am Obirabi Omubo. Don't forget to follow us on all social media platforms at Housing TV Africa and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more insightful discussions. You can also get the mobile app on Google Play Store and Apple Store. Bye for now.
Visit Housing TV Africa on YouTube and click on the subscribe button. Subscribe to Housing TV Africa to stay updated on latest happenings in Nigeria's housing sector. Follow our social media pages, like and share our posts. On Facebook, Housing TV Africa. On Twitter, Housing TV Africa. Instagram, Housing TV Africa. Join the conversation and keep